Longer than usual, but this is important. On July 8th, 2025, the Dinah Project released its report, A Quest for Justice, October 7 and Beyond. The findings are extensive, they're detailed and horrifying. They confirm the use of sexual violence as a systematic weapon of war by Hamas during October 7th attacks, as well as in the captivity that followed. But before I go into that detail, established in the wake of October 7th, the Dinah Project is the leading resource for recognition and justice for the victims of conflict-related sexual violence, or CRSV, on that horrendous day and subsequently. But I was curious as to the name. Why the Dinah Project? Well, it turns out that Dinah was the daughter of Jacob and Leah in the Bible. One day she goes out alone and is then raped by a local prince called Shem. According to Genesis 34, he took her and lay with her by force. But then Dinah quickly disappears from her own story. Her father speaks. Her brothers speak. Her rapist speaks. Dinah is spoken about but never gets to speak for herself. Her voice is erased. Hence, the Dinah Project, which works to give a voice to those victims who cannot speak for themselves. So, to the report. It's 84 pages long, with testimony from 15 returned hostages, 17 eyewitnesses, 27 first responders, and forensic evidence, accounts from the morgue attendants describing bodies with indicators of sexual violence, supported by photographic documentation. The report states that sexual violence was widespread and systematic during the October 7th attack, occurring across at least 6 different locations. The Nova Music Festival, Route 232, the Nahal Oz military base, Kibbutzim Re'im near Oz and Kfar Aza. Clear patterns emerged in how the sexual violence was perpetrated, including victims found partially or fully naked, with their hands tied often to structures like trees or poles, evidence of gang rapes followed by execution, genital mutilation and public humiliation. Women were found dead, naked and mutilated with gunshots in their genitalia and tied to trees. The fact that the same things happened in 3 to 6 locations cannot be coincidence, but it's proof that this was premeditated. Sexual violence continued in captivity, with multiple returnees reporting forced nudity, physical and verbal sexual harassment, sexual assaults, even threats of forced marriage. Do you want to be raped or marry this nice young terrorist? Most victims were permanently silenced, either murdered during or after the assaults, or remaining too traumatized to talk. And the team at the Dinah Project explains that this created unique evidentiary challenges. The response from the international community at the time was, to say the least, lacking, as well as seriously troubling. Of course, Hamas denied everything, calling the allegations fabricated. UN Women, led by Sima Sami Bahous, took over 50 days to make any specific reference to Israeli victims of sexual violence. It took a full 6 months before a team led by UN Special Representative of the Secretary General on Sexual Violence and Conflict, Pramila Patten, found that there was substantial evidence to conclude that victims were sexually abused and raped by Hamas terrorists. The UN Special Rapporteur on Violence Against Women and Girls, Raim Al-Salim, claimed she hadn't seen enough evidence to prove Hamas committed atrocities on October 7th. She then co-authored a spurious report accusing the IDF of sexually abusing Palestinian women and girls. Just 4 days after the attack, her co-author, UN Special Rapporteur Francesca Albanese, stated that she doubted reports of rape and sexual violence. Rather, she said, the US and Israel were spreading these claims to escalate tensions. Brianna Joy Gray, a popular political commentator in the US, cast doubt on the rape claims. She cited the lack of forensic evidence and publicly rolled her eyes during a TV interview with the sister of a hostage talking about sexual violence. Prominent feminist academic Judith Butler described the October 7th attack as armed resistance. She failed to acknowledge the sexual violence even when directly challenged. Listen, the usual suspects in the media and online dismissed the claims entirely, calling them propaganda. So no honest scrutiny, no empathy, or perish the thought, solidarity with Israeli women. What happened to believe all women? This was the exemplification of Me Too unless you're a Jew. The Dinah Project's report does what these institutions and individuals totally fail to do. It listens, it documents, and it investigates. It's clear that when victims are brutally raped, mutilated, then murdered, you cannot expect pristine forensic evidence. Then there are those who hid behind demands for a level of forensic perfection they knew was impossible. It's disingenuous in the extreme. The victims were dead or so brutally violated they couldn't speak. But from the report you get patterns, you get testimony, you get to the truth if you're willing. Victims' bodies bore the evidence. Their stories are told by those who survived, those who saw and those who heard, and by those who came to help. They were too late to save anyone, but not too late to attest to the horror. Applying what they call a tailored, context-sensitive evidentiary model adapted to the unique challenges the Dinah Project report sets out clearly. Victims were raped, tortured, mutilated, executed. They were violently stripped, tied up, violated, and murdered. These are not isolated incidents. These are patterns repeated across multiple locations, confirmed by multiple sources. This report confirms and corroborates the systematic sexual violence used as a weapon of war by Hamas on October 7th. Moreover, it confronts the atrocities and demands the world stop looking away and acknowledge these heinous crimes. And it also cries out for justice for the victims. You can find a link to the full report in the comments section.